Hi there, viewers. Today I'm joining a conversation with Marissa Lima, the author of The Knowing. It's quite a pleasure to have Marissa on the show today. How are you doing, Marissa?
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show too. I'm very excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Marisa, could you tell us about your book, The Knowing? How does this book come about? What inspired you to write The Knowing?
I've always been a writer. I wrote my first novel when I was 10 years old. I scribbled into a spiral notebook.
Wow.
And I've lost count of how many books I've written since then. It's just always been an outlet for me. But I never really tried to publish anything because, the publishing industry is kind of an exercise in frustration,
Yeah.
honestly. So I would enjoy the writing. It was just kind of a personal outlet, and then I'd move on to the next project. And a lot of people, tried to encourage me to publish, but it just always seemed like kind of an impossibility.
Mm.
And so now self-publishing has come along, and I feel like it can be to authors what streaming is to musicians, essentially,
Yeah,
kind of cutting out that
absolutely.
middleman, an avenue to reach our audience without having to go
Yeah.
the traditional route. For the first time, I published one of my novels, and it's been an interesting learning process. Um, and I'm still not finished, refining the book. But that's one of the beauties of self-publishing is that I can make changes.
Absolutely.
I can choose to print on demand, and I can make changes as need be, and I don't end up with a garage full of books that have errors in them. So
Yeah.
it's changed the game for me, especially this whole self-publishing, approach.
That's amazing, really. I love the sound of it. That's very amazing. Sounds like a great start to writing a book. And now I also love to ask you, for readers who haven't read the book yet, and of course, without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect picking up the knowing?
Sure, of course. So the Knowing Book One is part of a series.
Yeah.
It's a novel about a dystopian society that's made up of two groups. One group is called the Known, and these are people that have their year of death has been revealed to them. The other group
Wow.
is called the Unknown, and they don't know when they're going to die. So
Wow.
the story addresses, kind of two issues. One, which is the implication of having the knowledge of when you're going to die, and
Wow.
how much that would affect everything. I mean, think about it. If you knew when you were
Yeah.
going to die, it would likely change everything about how you live. So
Mm.
there's that issue. And secondly, it looks at a society where some people know when they're going to die and some don't. So that creates this dichotomy that just strikes right through the heart of their society. It's as if these two groups are living in completely different worlds.
Oh, that's a great team, really. Like to know the date that someone would die, you basically have to set your way right, You start behaving, it's gonna
Right,
change
right.
quite a lot of things because even I've come to think of it that if we human beings think about death on a daily basis, we will be prone to live a much more better life, prone to do the
Of
right
course.
thing, like to know that okay, I'm not
Right.
staying here forever, something is gonna
Hmm.
happen someday. So it's not better to just stay right and do the right thing. You understand?
And the crazy thing
So
is, that's really how we should be living anyhow, but we
absolutely.
don't. But by
Yeah.
having that knowledge, these characters, it changes everything. And I think
Wow.
the change in society, I mean, it essentially changes society completely by the fact that these
Absolutely.
people know when they're going to die. So I just
Wow.
think the implications of it open up to so many possibilities.
Wow. Well, aside that, that would really make for an interesting discussion. Sounds like a theme or a topic for philosophy.
Yeah, I agree.
Amazing.
I agree.
Amazing. Yeah. And I also
Sure.
see that The Knowing is a first book in series. And apart from this particular The Knowing, do you have any other works you're currently working on? And I mean, how many more series should we expect and look forward to?
Well, so right now I'm working specifically on this series, and I've decided to do things a little differently with it. So it's not an ordinary book. It's more of an interactive reader experience, kind of a
Mm.
collaboration of sorts.
Oh.
So the first novel has been released in installments, and book one is the first installment, essentially. It's a quick read. And it's just the first piece of a project, really, that readers have been invited to join.
Oh.
So it lays the foundation for the story and the phenomenon that makes the story possible. It kind of builds the architecture of the narrative.
Mm.
But the deeper narrative and the character development are kind of still to come. And that's where the interactive piece comes in. And this is what's exciting to me. So at the end of book one, readers have an email address that they can respond to, and they can share their thoughts about the book, where it might go next, what they would like to see next.
Mm.
And so I plan to weave as many of those ideas from readers into the next part of the series as possible. So readers might actually get to see their ideas in the story in book two. So
Wow.
they actually get to be a part of book two. I want this story to be created by many minds. I
Mm.
want people to share with me, how they're feeling about the first book, share their thoughts and ideas with me. Let me know, would you want to know when you were going to die? And if so,
Hmm.
that changed the way you lived your life. And I want to weave all of that into book two. So it becomes kind of this collaborative project. So it's not
Wow.
just me, but readers get to be a part of it as well.
Wow. Wow, that's a very great concept. That's a very great concept, and also an
Yeah.
opportunity for readers too. I love the sound of it. It's a great one. Now,
Yeah.
Marissa, let's talk about criticism. As authors, we all have different ways of reacting to feedbacks and criticism of our works. I'm curious to know your opinion about criticism. How do you react to negative criticism of your books, should in case you've ever had one in time past?
Sure. So, we all tend to become kind of blind to our own ways, so I think feedback is absolutely essential to growth. I
Mm.
want to refine my craft. I want to be the best I can possibly be. So I welcome feedback. And in fact, in book one, I've actually asked readers to let me know if they find errors in the book, because I want
Wow.
it to be the best that it can possibly be. And that's kind of part of that interactive experience. Again,
Yeah.
hey, readers, let me know what you find in the book that doesn't look right. And of course, negative criticism is never fun to hear. But honestly, reading is so subjective. Each reader
Mm.
has very specific tastes, genre, writing
Yeah.
styles. Some people even prefer male or female authors. So it's kind of
Wow.
like our taste buds when we're eating, everyone has
Mm.
such particular likes and dislikes. If someone doesn't like my food, well, they can just go eat something else. The same is true of writing. There are millions of books out there.
Yeah.
Mine won't be for everyone. And that's okay. I'm not for everyone. And that's okay too. I think we just have to take it in stride and believe in what you're doing. And obviously if they're true errors, you know take the feedback and fix the errors. Otherwise, if it's more of a stylistic thing, then everybody's different. You can't, you got to let that stuff roll off of you, I think.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you mentioned that it's like a text board, while you're eating, where you get to know a side that is sweet, another one that is bitter, another one that is neutral,
Sure.
and we all have it
Yeah.
differently. Yeah, I love
Absolutely.
that. I
We may
love
eat the
that
same dish and
description.
feel different ways about it. You may love
Yeah,
it, I may hate it. So it's
yeah,
just it's very subjective.
absolutely.
We
And the
have to keep
fact
that
that
in mind.
everyone can even interpret books, literature differently also add to
Oh,
it.
absolutely. No
Yeah.
doubt whatsoever. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah. So
That's
it's all part of
great.
it.
Absolutely. Now, Marissa, I've always been fascinated about how authors, especially novelists like yourself, craft long sentences and brings works together in a way that it eventually makes a great novel. This always leave me thinking about how exactly they got their inspiration and ideas. Now, as far as writing is concerned, I would also love to ask you regarding your book. How do you get your inspiration and ideas? Where do they come from?
Well, my brain goes constantly. I just constantly have story ideas going in my mind. I've always had a vivid
Wow.
imagination. I've always been a voracious reader. And I think I fell in love with the cadence of language very young.
Oh,
So writing just came very naturally to me. For this one, this is the first sci-fi type of book I've written.
wow.
Um, so it's new to me. And I'm really enjoying the opportunity to create things, that aren't
Mm,
real in the real world. It almost feels a little bit like I'm cheating because I get to make things up. Um, I take things from everyday life. I have this crazy habit of thinking, seeing a normal situation and thinking, wouldn't it be crazy if, or wouldn't it be interesting if? And that
mm,
becomes a story somehow.
mm.
This one, I think COVID had something to do with this storyline. The past few years have been hard on so many people, and we've
Yeah,
all, I think, taken a step back and looked at our lives and how we're living our lives and the choices we're making, what's important to us. So
yeah.
I've done a lot of thinking about that. And I think maybe I went down that road of, if I knew I was going to die next year from COVID, what would I do
Mm,
differently? That sort of thing. And from there, it's just evolved into this crazy story, um, that I hope will start a conversation for people about those sorts of things.
mm,
How are you living your life? How are you making this decisions about your life? Would you make those differently if you knew how much time you had? And why aren't you doing it differently when you don't know how much time you have?
mm.
There's
Yeah.
just so many questions that come from this topic, that I just think really could get people talking. And that's another piece of this kind of interactive experience, is that I want people to talk to each other.
Yeah,
There's just
yeah.
not enough of that anymore. And I hope that this starts that conversation between people, really kind of stopping and thinking about how are we living our lives and why are we living them that way. So so that's the inspiration for it. It's kind of a long time unfolding, but my inspirations come from all kinds of different things. Like I said, my brain just goes constantly. I keep notes all the time. I wake up in the middle of the
Wow,
night and make notes about some crazy story that I've thought
wow.
of, and I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of writers do that. We all carry around a
Absolutely.
notebook, or we keep notes on
Yeah.
our phone of all of the wacky ideas we have, sometimes worth writing about. Sometimes I look back and think, what in the world, but they come from all kinds of interesting places.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, absolutely. I love the sound of it. I like how you get your inspiration and ideas, and I so much love the sound of your book, and I so much love it. It sounds very
thank you.
amazing and quite interesting to me, and very compelling as
Thank
well.
you.
Yeah, I love the sound
Thank
of it.
you.
Yeah, now
Yeah.
Marisa, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? Also, are there any
Sure.
challenges you've encountered ever since you got published?
Sure. Yeah. So, the publishing world is a completely different place now than it was a decade ago.
Yeah.
Self-publishing has changed the game completely. And when you think about it, it's been around forever. I mean, Charles Dickens self-published A Christmas Carol because his publisher didn't think it was really all that impressive. But for many years, self-publishing was really frowned upon. It was
Mm,
kind of sub level. But the quality and the ability to distribute has improved so much that I really do believe that now it can be to writers what streaming has been for music and TV and
absolutely.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah, so while it's still not an easy road to self-publish, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It does open doors that weren't open to
Absolutely.
us before.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the biggest challenges I've found is marketing. I have to spend time getting the word out about the book when I'd really rather be writing, you know.
Yeah.
But that's all part of it. If I want to share my story with the world, then I've got to take the time to tell the world about it. So,
Yeah.
it's just a piece that all writers, if you want to get your story out there, you've got to do the marketing. Even if you get picked
Mm,
up by a publishing house, they're really not going to do a great deal of marketing unless you're a
yeah,
well-known author already.
yeah,
So I've learned, a big challenge for me has been learning the marketing route and having to really, put the time in for that.
mm,
But it's interesting. It's really fascinating, and there are so many avenues now for marketing a book that didn't exist even just a few years ago. So
yeah,
it's absolutely possible, but it's work. It's a lot of work. So
yeah. I love your take about that, and I love your answers to this question. They sound very
thank
educative
you.
as well. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, now I also love to ask you, Marissa, is there anything that you'd love to share with the viewers about your book that we did not mention in this interview and I'd love the viewers to know?
I think when we read a book, we each have a different vision of what characters and setting and all of those things look like.
Yeah.
So think about when you read a book and then you see the film version of the book, it never looks the way you thought it was going to look, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We all have our personal vision of what the story looks like. So I want to try and capture that phenomenon with my readers, and I want them
Wow.
to tell me what it looks like to them and share their thoughts about what they want it to look like next. That's that interactive piece of the book.
Mm.
um, and the first book ends very abruptly, and that's by
Wow.
design. Um, I want readers to come away feeling like they weren't ready for it to end and they wanted more. And then I want them to tell me, what does that more look like?
Mm.
What is it that you wanted to see? So that I can use those ideas in book two and continue the series.
Wow.
And then, from there, we'll do it all again in book three. So I think that,
Wow.
like I said, the implications for this type of society where some people know when they're going to die are so vast. This has the potential to be many, many, books within the series, because there's just so
Yeah.
many things we could address. So I think
Yeah.
that's important for people to know. And finally, I do want people to know that a portion of the proceeds from the book are going to the American Cancer Society. The
Wow.
Making Strides Against Breast Cancer movement is
Wow.
important to me, and so I'll be donating to that from the proceeds of the book. So the
Wow.
better the book does, the more I'm able to donate to that important cause.
Wow, that's amazing, really. I'm so excited to
Thank
hear
you.
about that, and that's a very great thing to do. Thank you so much.
Thank
That's
you. Thank
impressive.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's an important cause. It's important to me. So,
absolutely. Now, as a
yeah.
published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book? What would you advise people in this category?
Just do it. You know, um, like I said, the self-publishing route is changing everything.
Yeah.
I'm 50 years old. I've been
Oh,
writing books for 40 years. And
oh,
I kept telling myself that publishing was just this insurmountable wall. But that wall is coming down now. And you just have nothing to lose. If you have a story to tell, it's so much easier to get it out there. There are so many platforms that you can format books on and you can
yeah,
distribute books on nowadays, that while it takes, there's a learning curve, and it is a lot of work. It's
yeah,
absolutely possible. Just do it. What have you got to lose?
nothing.
It's a new year, especially. Get out there and do something new.
Yes, I love your advice, and I'm hopeful that viewers, including myself, would love to utilize it. Now, Marissa, in case we have some viewers who are currently watching this interview and they would like to get a copy of your book, on what platform is it available on for purchase?
Right now, they can get it on Amazon in multiple formats. It will be coming to other sellers soon, but right now, Amazon is the main place to find it. Check it out.
Yeah, and I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can
Great.
get a copy of The Knowing directly on Amazon. So thank you so much,
Fantastic.
Marissa, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Peter. I really enjoy being here today. And hello to your listeners. And thank you so much. I hope you all will check out the book. And I hope that you'll let me know where you'd like to see it go next and maybe be a part of book two.
Yeah, that's great. I love the sound of that. Thank you for the opportunity.